Hey, Sparklers, I am here with, I've got to pronounce you, I've been practicing pronouncing your name, Agnieszka, is that right?
Agnieszka. So I have to
Agnes.
say, so it's Dr. Agnieszka Piotrowska.
What a lovely name. Sorry. Um, so I'm here and we're going to be recording and talking more about sort of a psychological side of spiritual, I think is the best way to word it, isn't it? We had a lovely chat the other day, absolutely brilliant, and we got on really well. And sort of realizing that a lot of people struggle with this sort of side, weren't we, with the chat we were having the other day? So we thought, right, we need to get a podcast out there about this.
Yes, exactly. So not many people realize that it is very possible to combine more traditional tools, psychological and psychoanalytical, with spiritual tools. And I would suggest very strongly that you can't actually. I mean, there's a lot of confusion over manifesting, and maybe we can
Yes.
so some people think it's completely, like woo-woo magical thinking. Some people who would describe themselves as grounded and realistic life coaches don't use these kind of tools and don't believe you can manifest anything. Well, I absolutely do. And my PhD is in psychoanalysis. Not many people know, and I want to just put it out there straight away, that the father of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud, who was a medical doctor, he was a man of science. In fact, he did believe in spiritual things, even supernatural, and certainly had evidence for telepathy, for example. Yes.
Yes, he did. He did. There's
And
actually another doctor that's the same as well. And I love that you've brought this up.
also, his relationship with Carl Jung, so many people say, oh, they fell out over some of the more magical parts of Carl Jung's system. And that is completely not true. They fell out over the issue of transference, so we can talk about it, which is your relationship with the client, not to do with the collective consciousness or archetypes. So I think that it's what I am trying to do, what I believe in, is that it's useful to bring the two together in some way, some
Yes.
kind of spiritual tools and also more traditional, if you like, psychotherapeutic tools.
Yeah, because I spoke to you last time about this, about when I was under counselling, I was just revisiting trauma, and they just went, "You've got the tools, go on." But they hadn't gave me the tools to heal. They just gave me the tools to talk about it. And then I got massively even more into my spirituality. And that did give me the tools to heal, to let go, to sort of like get rid of it. And this is one thing we spoke about before. And the fact with bringing up Dr. Freud, I think everyone knows who Dr. Freud was. And we seem to forget that these old school doctors did believe in all this, did believe it could help. They built rooms in their hospitals for it to help in this way. I know there's a famous hospital in France, isn't there, where they actually had a whole like room built so when it was raining, the patients to still feel like they were outside, they were still getting that natural spiritual relief from being seeing the plants, seeing the birds, seeing the trees. And
I
I
mean,
think
some of the kind of 19th century practices, um, I suppose we would consider not good ones, concerning, because that sometimes there's a sort of um, concern whether the patient was at the heart, and also there was a very much gender divide in 19th century, so women and hysterics and men
yeah,
of science, and so, but within this, where I think one can still take the best tools of that practice, because of course Freud in many ways was also to begin with certainly rooted in the 19th century practices. It's possible to take some of the best things and of these 19th century practices and then early 20th century and so on, and apply them to the modern life, right?
Yes, no, I completely agree. So some of the stuff, I hold my hands up. I had to refresh myself over Freud. I did him when I did my childcare, so I did sort of have to refresh myself slightly. And early on, you are completely correct. He was like just following suit. I think following the sheep. Uh, just following the leader. And then later on, he sort of realized actually, we need to realistically look at this from, I don't want to use the term soul, but I feel like soul. And he started to look at his actual patients.
Well, actually, it's so interesting. You've just used the word soul because of course, he wrote in German, Freud, and some of these writing, there's different translations of these words, and they into English translators' mind is not to say the word soul, and
Yes.
this is very interesting in itself. But I think that also the issue of which we can talk about. I'll just mention it and then we can talk about it some more. The issue of defenses and the issue of even denial. Denial has such a terribly bad press. And people say, oh, this is terrible, somebody's in denial. Well, actually, yes, it can lead to all kinds of issues if you're sitting in this denial only. But to begin with, as a defense, it can be necessary tool for you to keep going
Yes.
until and sometimes you will need some therapeutic help to uncover what it is that you're denying. But in itself, denial, is a very successful defense, and we must not use it as a sort of word of like an offensive word. You're in denial because it's silly. We're all in denial. We all
Of something.
some sort.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think this is one of the things also going back to manifestation. Being in denial sometimes helps you manifest, sort of like being in denial about the fact of, I know it sounds strange, that you're poor. If you can pretend you're not poor and you can sort of go forward with that and sort of go, I am going to be rich one day, have that mentality, that actually can help being in denial of that fact. I know for some people it can't help because um it can lead to other psychosis, is the way I'm going to word it.
Lead to other issues. Yeah.
Yeah. But it is true. It can help you manifest. I know a lot of business owners, a lot of YouTubers where they've been really poor and they've come from a bad background and they've acted like they are this perfect person on YouTube, and now they've got millions and millions of subscribers. They're worth millions and millions of pounds.
Very interesting. Very, very interesting. And in a way, it is a form of denial. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Because when you imagine yourself being in a different state, this could be very helpful. It is a form of defense, of course, but you can use it creatively. I'm doing another training now, which uses spiritual tools. And there was this conversation about what it is to say, I surrender to higher power, to God, I surrender. And tell me what you think it means. And some people would say, oh, it's too difficult. I don't even know what it means, and to me, what it means it's not complex. It means that you're optimistic, that things are going to work out, that you believe in the higher power, benevolent universe, God who has your well-being at heart. But you still have to be creative. You still have to do things. If you just sit there hopelessly waiting for manna from heaven, it's not going to happen, is it?
Yes. And I think that is a great example of how in denial and manifestation really do meet.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I find a lot of people, obviously I do witchcraft, so I do spells, and people are like, you're just sat around waiting. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like when I was waiting for yourself, I was scrolling through Facebook, through the podcast groups to find new podcast guests, possibly be on theirs, you know, and that's me doing it. I'm asking when I do my witchcraft, which is a bit like prayers. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, explain. That will be interesting. Explain about your type of witchcraft and what you do.
Yeah, so mine's more of a ritual. So it's a bit like a prayer. So a bit like Islamic laying down their rug before they pray, washing their hands, etc. So for me, my witchcraft is a prayer. It's an offering to the gods. It's not a like for other people where I don't mean this rudely, where they see witchcraft, we can't fly stuff out of our hands and stuff. Yes, we can control energy and stuff like that, but we can't like it's not Hollywood, like we're throwing stuff out of our hands and you can sort of see my witchcraft stuff behind me. We're sacrificing stuff. It's not stuff like that. We do offerings. So I will light a candle for my gods and goddesses during the witchcraft and stuff like that. And in a way, witchcraft is a form of manifestation. It's a form of changing the energy around us. And that is what it is for me. It's not what people seem to think it is, if that makes sense. And it's one of the things that actually, if I'm honest, has helped me massively with manifestation, because for me personally, when I am down and I'm struggling, I will do one of these spells, or I'll do manifest, and it does help.
And is it also can be a form of meditation, right?
Yes. So I do a lot of meditation. I hold my hands up. So I meditate. The other day alone, I did 6 hours of meditation. So it meditation is massive in witchcraft. Like we minimum 15 to 20 minutes a day, minimum. And I think this is another thing that actually helps us spiritually. People don't realize how meditation really helps. Like when people say to me, oh, how do you do that? And your brain doesn't overload. And I'm like, I am thinking while I'm doing this. That is the point. Meditation is to help me through these problems I have. It's to help me through, and it's helped me, I only have one thought at a time, and I'll either breathe that out if it's negative and push it away and just get rid of it if it's negative. But if it's a positive thought coming through, I will go with it. Or if it's a spirit guide, I hold my hands up. I do have spirit guides, and I can feel the gods and goddesses energy during it. I won't push that away. I will go with it and see what the message is from, as most like to say, the divine, and figure out what, if I'm on the right path and stuff like that. And I think this is one of the things for me is very important to actually sort of do. And I've noticed, especially with now with my energy cleansing and stuff like that, whereas I was stuck for many years, I was under counselling, I was on antidepressants left, right, and centre. They were changing them every 6 months because my mood swings would start again. For me, I actually found that meditation helped me manifest stuff. It helped me to clear my mind better. And I think this is one of the important things about meditation, because a lot of people think that you've just got to sit there and think of nothing. And it really isn't that way. You can even manifest in meditation. I think a lot of people don't realize that. Go into your meditation. I do manifest meditation for at least twice a week, where I picture my YouTube channel at 1K subscribers. And I just sit there and I do that. And I'm fortunate because, as we know, this is a small niche. And since January, I've managed to gain 135 subscribers. And people are like, why are you happy with that? And I go, that is brilliant. I'm like, I'm in a small niche. That is brilliant. And my videos are going well. They still get viewers. And that for me is why I do witchcraft, why I do meditation, because for me, it sort of just helps me process my sort of way of manifesting, I think.
Exactly. But it's so interesting, really, what you've just said. And I think it's really important that you've shared it so openly and honestly, because I think what you're saying is very interestingly that you have had some mental health issues. Somehow, Orthodox medicine they were not able to help you, not really, a little bit, but up and down, was actually these other tools to do with mindfulness, organizing your thoughts, then going to rituals. And the ritual is, it's a witchcraft ritual. You could say the minute, and you're right, the minute anybody says the word witchcraft, everybody will say, oh my God. But the way you've described it, I think is really helpful, because you say it's a ritual in which you can access your own, I would say, unconscious, your own desires and fears, and
Yes.
then with the help of spiritual tools. And if you choose and feel that and you mentioned to me that the Hellenic tradition is something that's very close to your heart. If
Yeah.
this is with the help of these Hellenic gods, if you like, then I think it's great, because in a way you are doing some profound self-help, basically.
Yes. So most of my followers know, so I have PTSD and ADD. My childhood is a real mix of stuff. And I've been openly speaking about this just recently, and people are like, how are you okay? And I'm like, why are you asking me, how am I okay? Like, I'm okay because I have forgiven that past. I've gone spiritually and gone, I don't need that anymore. And this is where it has helped me a heck of a lot. It has helped me. And this is why I loved when we were having our conversations.
Really. But it's so interesting, isn't it, that now you've mentioned another word, forgiveness. In traditional psychotherapy, I mean, honestly, because I also trained as a to be a psychoanalyst, I've been in psychoanalysis for a long time, years and years and years. Nobody would say the word forgiveness. It's just like, and it's like number one. It's the first thing you need to learn to do. And then there's this, through meditation, through setting intention, not to be some sort of fool to forgive all people and just open yourself to more hurt. Not at all, but to get rid of negative feelings in your heart so that you can let in positive feelings which can change your life, right?
Yes, I love that. Yes.
Exactly, right. So whether frankly you're going to be calling it a witching ritual or something else, it helps you, clearly has helped you tremendously. So I think it's wonderful. And there is a way. Okay, let me then tell you how I see um an important step in manifestation. This is just my sense, and you and I would say I might have this sense from some people. Use the word download again. I don't particularly like it, but I feel it's the right thing to talk about. So we are all beings with darkness in us and light. You would agree
Yes.
with that, right?
Completely.
And I think, again, from psychoanalysis, I would say do not suppress your darkness, rather get to know it. Get to know it, talk about it with either your coach or psychotherapist or with your spiritual guides, with yourself, and try and tame it. We don't want to be bad people. We like to be, being good people and nice and positive and happy. But you need to have the darkness and light together. And if you then hold it in one space and feel a certain calmness about it, this is the moment when you can begin to manifest. If you suppress
Yes.
your darkness, so when people talk about be in high vibration, like what does it mean exactly? How are you going to be in high vibration? Your
Oh,
life is falling
yeah.
apart when you don't actually have, for example, money enough to pay rent. When you have some terrible partner, you somehow need to find a way in which you say, this shit is going on in my life. Nonetheless, I am going to take some steps to deal with it. Maybe there's some part of me which contribute to it, but I am light. I believe in light out there, and I'm going to manifest a different life for myself, right?
Yes. No, I love that. So one of the things, I hate the expression love and light. I hate it. And I am gonna get my people are gonna go, Amy's used the term hate. because I do hate that. So the reason I hate that term, and that is one of the things I will use that word, is because I say to them all the time, it's not love and light. What we do, especially when we start to go into the spiritual world, we need to recognize the darkness within. We need to recognize that we're not 100% light. We're not always going to be light. So when I speak to some people, and it really does frustrate me, when I speak to some spiritualists, and this is why I've sort of kept myself a little bit with it since over 14, I got started to get into this. Oh my goodness, over 25 years, is purely because I really struggled with the fact of when I was having my dark moments and my very, very dark moments, and I was like, nothing's okay, nothing's going okay, everything's going wrong. When I was having them, I found the love and light people were like, oh, you've got an attachment. You've got an attachment. You have to have an attachment. And I'm like, no, it's actually me. They were like, no, it's not you. And I'm like, no, it is. It's me. But how do I get rid of it? No one could explain how to me to get rid of the darkness within me. So this is why I had one lady, which I told you about, I met really weirdly how I met her. And she was the first lady when I was 25, 26 that finally taught me how to get rid of that darkness within when I was having that, when I'm having road rage and all that. And I'm so angry. And so I love the fact you've said about this, because so many people really do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think you can learn to accept. I mean, this is not easy, and this through meditation, through rituals, through prayers, through whatever you want, talking about it, you can begin to say, okay, there is some darkness in me, which I don't like, but listen, you can sometimes use anger to for good, to your benefit. You can use anger to fuel you to go forward for the highest good of all, then. But in the first instance, you could be angry. Look, nothing would have changed in the world if, for example, women were not angry with men and didn't use some of this power to change some of the patriarchal systems, right? So
Yeah.
to say, oh, don't ever feel anger, I'm sorry, but it's just nonsense. Some anger is okay. And some anger, we can then do something with it creatively, right?
Yes, it's how you process that anger.
Exactly.
So I've got a great example of this. TikTok, I went really depressed because of TikTok, had a lot of stuff go on in January because of what was going on with it. Well, I'll actually say from November to January. And I wasn't doing what I teach other people, step away. I wasn't doing that. I was like, I like the financial side of it and stuff like that. And then I started to get angry. And I was like, really, really angry, really, really frustrated. And then all of a sudden I went, hold on, there's other platforms.
Well, what's happening on TikTok? Did you have some trolls?
Yeah, a lot of trolls, people that so one of my PTSD triggers is people using me. That is a massive trigger. So I had a lot of people using me because I've got quite a big following over there and stuff like that. So for me, it was sort of like better to step away from it, even though I had this massive following. And people are most probably watching us going, you stepped away from it. Like I've got nearly 5K followers at one point. It has dropped down to nearly 4K now. And they're like, you stepped away from that? And I'm like, you have to, because when you're not processing that anger and it's just building and building and building and building, and then it starts to turn to depression, you've got
Oh,
to go, hold on.
yeah. And also, so the interesting thing about telling stories. So let me tell you something else. So in terms of telling stories and making some creative, not just adjustment, but let's physically, people talk about journaling, fine. But journaling usually is saying, grateful for this and that. I think it's great. But if you use it in a slightly different way, if instead, in terms of, for example, your bad experiences in your childhood, your trauma, if you then start making up a story which is not exactly the story that happened to you, but rather creative reimagining with a happier ending. And you can write it or you can make a little video, whatever, even not necessarily to put out there, but maybe, but also for yourself. This creative action can also have healing effects, basically.
Yeah, so even processing it that way when you are so angry, you're like, right, okay, I want to write this all down. And I do love that. That is something you spoke to me about before, about rewriting the story. And that for me was amazing because I was like, I never thought of, while I'm in this angry process, of writing it down and rewriting it. Obviously, we all have diaries. Well, most of us do, I should say. And I did love that. And I think you said that's a process that you actually use for your clients, wasn't it?
Because it's, I mean, creativity, and again, it's not something I've just thought of. Again, psychoanalytically, both Freud and Lacan is a big French psychoanalyst. Actually, Lacan actually used, and I'm probably more Lacanian than Freudian. Lacan used an expression. It almost sounds like a symptom, but it's symptom. It's a French word, and he gave an example of Irish writer James Joyce, and he would say that James Joyce had very profound mental health issues, psychosis, in fact, and yet he was able to tame it because he was a writer through a creative process. So the whole idea of Freud was talking about sublimation, of using your feelings, which are maybe angry or some dysfunctional, in some creative process as a healing practice. Absolutely. And somehow, again, I think it's to do with a variety of things. People who are in a position of being a psychotherapist or life coach or anything, they're not supposed to like the power they have, but sometimes they do. If I hand over the power to you and say, write your own story, let's talk about it, you reimagine it, write a different ending, it's very empowering. It takes also away from my power because I give it to you.
Exactly. This is actually one of the things I'll hold my hands up. Being in this world now, I really do struggle with is some of these power trip life coaches. I've not met as many psychologists, but these power trip life coaches, which are telling you how to live your life. It's They're very, very clever at the way they word stuff. And I love the fact that you actually give your clients that power back. Like, and I think that's important because I think one of the things while I was going through counselling is I felt like didn't have the power again. We were re-talking over this trauma and stuff like that. And people are saying to me, people are most probably watching this thinking, but that's technically in denial. And it's like, no, it's not. You acknowledge this has happened to you. You're just processing it in a different way for you to be able to get past it. And I do love that. I love that. You're manifesting it in a different way.
Exactly. No, absolutely. And there is, so the whole thing, because there's this whole massive industry, of course, of people sort of teaching you how to manifest in ways. I mean, some of them are good, some of them are not good. And it is true that you need to be fairly happy, I mean, to put it simply, to manifest anything, obviously, because if you're going to be just completely depressed and crying, you're not going to manifest shit, clearly. Sorry. But
no, it's true.
but I think that, to me, everybody has different methods. I think that holding the darkness and the light in one space to begin with, to start with, is your step forward. You then, because you're acknowledging, you're recognizing who you are, rather than suppressing down. I need to be positive at all time. I need to think. I need to just say how happy I am. Oh, come on, everybody. Even in the moments where we are very happy, there is a little bit of something there, as you were saying the other day. And rather than feeling guilty about it, you say, okay, this is who I am. There is scope for improvement. Let's go for it, either through ritual, whatever it is, meditation, prayer. Meditation is great because, you then can wait for these things to blend together so that darkness will go away, but it's still, you have to acknowledge it. I think you can't somehow leap from just being an ordinary person with the thoughts being all over the place, with, just imagining, looking around, thinking everybody is somehow happier than me. Then you say, okay, fine, some people are happier than me, some not. I've done quite well, particularly, given where I have come from.
Yes.
Now on to the next thing. And this is how, you almost feel as I'm speaking, how you can raise your vibration like this, right? But you're not going to raise it if you deny part of the darkness. And the word denial, we've discussed, it can be a good thing, but the darkness and the light, they need to somehow balance together, right?
Yes, and this is one of the things that I feel is really important, really important, is that balance. So I am a nightmare, as you can most probably tell, for chatting. I've been told since the day I was born. I remember just being told to shut up, basically, is the way I'm going to word it, from a child. I had to, when I was going through this at 25, 26, that was one of the first things I had to tackle, was that in denial of the fact that I had to shut up, that I had to be quiet. I didn't have to be quiet. I didn't have to shut up. That was their problem, not mine.
I mean, the issue of finding one's voice, one way or the other, is really what we're talking about here, which is why, if you just write down in this journal list of why you're grateful, should be grateful, I think sometimes people can start feeling guilty. I should be grateful, but I'm not feeling grateful. I'm feeling like shit. I'm annoyed. Then write out a different story, a story which, taps into your creativity, right? And
Yes.
use it as a curative, as a healing methodology.
Yeah. So this is a great one. And this is one actually I'm going to talk directly to a couple of my listeners that I know struggle with this. And they find it weird. So I don't get to go out on day trips with my children. I can't afford to. But yet they sit there and they say to me, how are you so grateful for stuff? I says, I'm grateful that I get every day with my children. I'm grateful that I get every day with my husband. I'm grateful for the fact of when he makes a joke or when my children make a joke. And I think this is one thing when you go through the spiritual and you are jotting everything down.
Beautiful. You just said it made me feel so happy just listening to it. It really is wonderful.
Uh, and this is what I want for people, and this is why I want these conversations, because I just sit there and I go, it's the smallest thing. There's actually a song, and in it it says about the baby's laugh. And I sit there and I go, I do sometimes say to my followers, I say, listen to a baby's laugh. Just listen to a baby's laugh, because I think it's these little things that we forget to be grateful for. So I do love you saying about even if they just drop down what they're grateful for, because I think it's recognizing actually what, not by oh my goodness, I can't say the word, not by everyone else's rules, but by our rules, what we should be grateful for, what makes us happy in our soul.
It's an important thing to say, to discuss the issue of self-sabotaging. The issue, which also can be called counter-manifesting. It's very interesting and to discuss. So from in my own life, I had, I suppose, a bad experience as a very young teenager, which I think really was sex abuse. And I know it's so almost common because a lot of women are abused one way or the other as children or teenagers or forever. This is almost like our destiny. You will not believe it, but in my own psychoanalysis or psychotherapy, your wonderful dogs are there.
I know.
They're so sweet. They're so sweet. Anyway, they're coming at a serious moment because, so can you believe it? One of the psychotherapists said, "Oh, you can read." Before we talked about it, he said, "Oh, maybe he wasn't really sex abuse maybe was just more like a relationship that had gone wrong. And I was 13 and the guy was 28. No, I think it was sex abuse, right?
Yes.
Not a good thing. So it's important to name these things and then find way of working through them for sure. But one of the things in my life was that for quite a long time I was attracted to inappropriate men.
Yes.
So distractive or womanizers or just bad people. So there was, and I felt I was repeating that pattern, which was kind of slightly bizarre because I was already kind of quite successful and professionally and well educated. And why was this going on? And again, I had to literally stall and stop and regroup myself in some spiritual way to decide in my heart that I'm now going to really stop this and look for a different type of person. So the way I did it was not so much through psychotherapy, but as I say, it was pretty useless, but rather through becoming, I mean, it wasn't completely useless because I became aware of certain things in how one can challenge things as well. And of course, I learned about psychoanalysis, and I think it's helpful tools. And people are people, so practitioners who you work with also depends who you work with. But for me, mostly it was some sort of spiritual awakening, belief, if you like, spiritual belief, and a conscious decision that I do not want to be attracted to these type of guys anymore. And honestly, I did stop. I did manage to stop.
Exactly. And
It's
this is
possible. I mean, it's hard, but it's not impossible. So I'm glad to report that I've now been married for 22 years and with a great guy. It's fine. We can do it. But it is this kind of, now that I look back, I can see how really I was self-sabotaging because I was creating situations which could have sabotaged my well-being, my career, my everything. And you had to get out of it. Sometimes you do need to work with somebody to get out of these situations. And you mentioned yourself, sometimes, I often use the metaphor of like a garden. I like wild gardens and I like for people to accept their weaknesses as part of who they are. But sometimes there could be like a nasty plant that maybe we do need to dig up to be able to put another nice plant in.
Yeah, no, I think that is absolutely
Metaphorically.
brilliant. Yes, no, I love that because so I have a lot of people where people go, oh, they're in denial. So I have a lot of followers where people go, oh, they're in denial. And I'm like, they're not, the self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
And people don't seem to actually recognize the difference. So I do love the fact you've brought that up because to me, the biggest killer of anything is self-sabotaging.
Oh, definitely. And usually comes from sense of, there's something wrong with me. Maybe I attracted this kind of thing, or the usual, I'm not enough, all kinds of things. And these are limiting beliefs which will damage you if you don't challenge them, that's for sure. But the issue is, what are the steps towards this kind of better self? For me, as I say, it was a mixture of creativity, definitely, and kind of I was in a situation where I was working in the television and film industry. So I was making professionally documentaries, and a lot of them were about love and betrayal, let me tell you, which was slightly strange, yes. And that was also had a sort of healing effect. And then more quietly, I was doing spiritual work. But it's not a 5-second operation. It will take a little while. You can get better quickly through rituals, but it is a continuous project, right?
Well, I would actually say you can't get better very quickly. So I have an energy program and I had some ladies on it and I was trying to teach them. And some of them I would find would come some weeks, some wouldn't. And this isn't a dig before my ladies that actually were on it. Take that, it's not. But what I was trying to, this is why I'm now going to record these sessions so they can use it on YouTube in their time, because there was just times that they couldn't make it. And this is one of the things that is important. And I keep saying to them, this isn't a practice. It took me I was 30 when I finally actually released everything. It took me a long time through these spiritual beliefs to finally release everything. My energy program isn't actually anything to do with my religion at all. It's more about cleansing the soul, cleaning the soul up. And this is one of the reasons why, for me, I find it quite frustrating because people want and I do sort of blame the internet and not the internet at the same time. They want an overnight healing. And I think this is medication's fault. I'm not going to lie. I think this is medication's fault.
Yeah, give me a pill and I'll be fixed. Yeah. But I mean, it is true. I do believe that you can feel better after one guided meditation. You will feel a little bit better, but it's incremental. Now, some people really disagree with that, you know. Some people would try and sell you something that your effect is immediate. It just doesn't work like that, does it?
No, it really doesn't. And this is one of the things that I actually get really frustrated with because people like, as I said before, people look at me and yourself now, lovely. They look at us both and they'll go, "Oh, you're such in a good place now." And I'm like, they won't see the hard work we've taken to get there. It's not overnight. This is years and years and years of spiritual practice, of even therapies. It's years and years of finding what works for us, I think is the best way to word it. And I do know now there is programs which do a bit like yourself, really, that do perform the counselling with the spiritual and bring them both together, which I know some people do need because they need to process. They still need that stage of processing trauma.
Absolutely. And it's good. It's very good to talk. I think it's always language talking will help you. Definitely. However, but there are many things to say here. You know, if you work with anybody, they need to be ready to take some responsibility for things that they do not like in their lives. Right?
Yes.
And people
Yes.
don't like it. They would much prefer to say, oh, this is this terrible person, this, that, and the other. This is why, by the way, the issue of sexual exploitation when people are younger is a proper issue, because I think if you're very young, you can't be blamed. You know, you really can't take responsibility. These things happen to you. But when you're older, you can take responsibility how you tell that story and how you can, you know, tell it differently, in which you take your power back. You know,
Yes.
stupid, idiotic man. I mean, just imagine who in my own life, who age 28, nice man, 28, would be really abusing this child of 13. What the fuck is wrong with him, right? A stupid pedophile. You know, out of my life, out of my
Exactly.
no, fine. I'm working on forgiving him. I'm not completely there, but I forgive him, meaning I don't want to feel this grudge anymore in my heart, because it's not helping me, right?
Yeah, so that's actually one thing that I want to speak about, is because I mentioned forgiveness before, and everyone will take that as you're fully forgiven. So I think we need to talk about forgiveness actually. So forgiveness, there's a difference between fully forgiving someone and actually forgiving. So for me, forgiveness is sort of like going, do you know what? I'm not the victim in this. You can take your bad energy back. You can have that. I don't need your bad energy. I forgive you for giving me that bad energy. So it's not about what they've done. So it's not forgiving what they've done because it's really bad. It's forgiving not just them, but yourself.
Yes,
I know.
exactly. Very much so. And I think also I had a whole discussion with some people on forgiveness actually a couple of days ago. And certainly there's no demand that you must let them into your life at all. Obviously, you don't have to make friends with them again. No, what there is, this is the level of forgiveness we're talking about. It depends what it is. You know, we have to forgive daily our husbands and friends. Always doing the same thing, obviously. But if somebody did something very bad to you, then you still, with time, may choose to forgive them, meaning try and understand why they did it, what is their background, what is in, like these type of people who abuse young girls, presumably they feel very disempowered, they can't deal with people of their own age, I don't know what. So you can make up these type of stories in order to
push it away. Yes.
them away on their way, even in a bubble of love. Off you go, and I don't want to even think about you anymore, and you have no charge over my mindset. That does not mean if they physically turn up to your doorstep that you say, come on in, have a cup of tea. No, no, no,
No,
no,
no, no, no.
no.
I am
Absolutely not.
no, I am the worst for cutting people off. People laugh at me. I'm like, but they haven't bothered your energy. And I'm like, no, because I've forgiven them. But Amy, you won't talk to them. And I'm like, because I've forgiven them, but I know their actions, they would redo this behavior.
Exactly.
Um,
So sometimes you have to just say, here's my boundary. And this person, I mean, this is a terrible story I've just told you. I haven't actually mentioned it before. Let me tell you, Amy, you're the first person I've mentioned it to. Yeah, I know. And I'm pleased that I haven't burst into tears. So it's good, but it was a terrible story. But there are people, who certainly, even in a workplace, hurt me, didn't behave well. And I have forgiven them, but I wouldn't trust them again. I wouldn't, have a relationship with them, a friendship, or even a working relationship, because I feel they abuse my trust. So there is a difference.
yeah, and I think that's really important. And can I just say, I'm so grateful for you sharing that with me because I know for a fact the first time that you ever share these sort of stories is really difficult. I'm not going to sit here and lie because we're taught. I think this is another thing that society teaches us. We're taught to keep that in. We're taught not to discuss it.
Because of some element of shame, of course.
Yes. And I think the fact I'm honored to see the fact, I don't mean that really, but I do feel honored about the fact of you haven't felt that shame with me. And
Absolutely. Well, you have a very good energy, obviously, but which is very inclusive, meaning you are saying to me and to people, come into my space and let's see what happens, right?
yeah,
Respectful. If people are disrespectful, then they can go again. I'm like that as well. I'm a very open person, very trusting. But I will fight back if somebody, if not fight back, then ask them to leave my life.
yeah, and I think that is an important thing with all of this is the fact getting that power. I think that's the thing when you've been a victim, getting that power to actually go, actually, I can cut this away. I can send it away. And I think people, again, with the forgiveness, they see forgiveness as in we fully forgive them. And it's like going, no, I've cut that out of my life. And I think that's my form of forgiveness. I go, I know you'll redo this. So I'm not going to forget it, but I'm going to forgive it and I'm going to send you away. You wouldn't ever be welcome back into my life. I wouldn't ever allow you around my children. I wouldn't allow you around my husband.
Mm.
And it is about setting boundaries. It's about, so my family massively say to everyone, oh, don't go to, Amy's the big mouth and she will just cut you off if you want. If she's not happy with you, she will just cut you off. Because, and that shows me when people say that sort of thing, that for me shows, and I don't mean this rudely to anyone if you do this, that shows to me you're going to redo that behavior. If you're putting the blame on me when you've actually, I'm the one that's been hurt. And this is one of the things with abuse, they say, well, they wanted it.
Yeah, no, it's dreadful. It's absolutely dreadful. And there are the elements of these stories that are of course very upsetting. And then you have to learn to draw boundaries around you as well, which, you can again learn how to do it energetically. So you put a boundary around you so people don't hurt you unnecessarily. But there is a lot of life is complicated. This is what I mean. So there's a variety of energetic practices that I use and that I'm sure you use, which can help.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the biggest keys. So one of the programs this lady taught me is basically during meditation, I bring up my soul light. So it's my soul that is what's full of love. That is, I want that always full of love, always full of kindness, and to be hubris. So I bring that up. And then what I do is the darkness that's down deep that I'm trying to hide and the memories and stuff like that, I actually bring that up, breathe that out as negativity, surround it by the well white light, and welcome it while I'm pushing it away. I'm not.
Yes, and in the process, I mean, it's what the processes can be slightly different, but it's important to, if you can bear it, then also in this moment when you breathe it out. So there's darkness or pain or suffering or even your, bad emotions for somebody, you put it in a, that's what I ask people to do. You put it in a golden ball, but you look at it. So you acknowledge your own darkness before you send it away.
Oh, I
Because
like
otherwise, if you completely suppress it all, out, go, it will come back. It just does. And that is what psychoanalysis teaches us, that if something is repressed and not properly acknowledged and not worked through, then it will just come back. And you even said it yourself. So there are methods, and yes, language is good, talking to somebody, but you have to trust them about some, but not endlessly, because this does reinscribe trauma. It just does. But people do sometimes want to come back, and that's fine too. They sometimes want to come back to the painful experience to talk about it, because they might come back. We think it's gone away and it's lovely golden light, and then there's a bit of it left, like you were saying, like,
Yeah. I hold my hands up. Having three girls, so having three daughters. I do struggle. I've got two with Sen issues. One of them, my eldest, is 19. She's got the mind of a 10-year-old. And when we were going through her autism diagnosis, they were talking to her about understanding sexual behaviors. And she was like, I don't understand that. Why would someone want to have sex with me if they weren't in love with me? So for her, in her mindset, and I was like, she is not safe.
she's not safe. No.
She is not safe out and about. Like, they've even put it in their report how concerned they are that she could be easily manipulated. And I think this is one of the things that I got triggered by a little bit. I hold my hands up. This was funny enough, it was actually around October time. And it was because I was like, how do I now keep my 19-year-old that's technically a 10-year-old safe?
Very tough.
And I think this is one of the things that I'm sure I don't know whether you've got children, but if you have,
I've got a son, so and he's a grown up, but it's always a slightly different story with a son, right?
it certainly is. And this is one of the things that my husband says all the time. He's like, do you know what? I wish I had sons. It would have been so much easier.
No, but this is a concern. And what will you do? How are you going to deal with it? What will you?
This is the thing. So she needs
What are you
24/7.
doing?
We have to be with her 24/7. One of the adults have to be with her to ensure her safety. And people say to me, oh, I get accused of being a helicopter mum all the time. And I'm like, but I would rather be a helicopter mum than have her in trauma.
Yeah.
I would rather be with her 24/7 than her experiencing anything like I did. And people sit there and they're like, oh, but she'll be fine. She's 19. She's got to grow up. And this is what everyone says around me. And I'm like, no, no. I'm like, mentally, she can't grow up. They basically informed us she's stuck at a 10-year-old for the rest of her life mentally for that. It's going to be hard for her to progress past that now.
Oh, yeah.
And even though,
Is she able to work in any way?
no, she needs 24/7 care.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she doesn't recognize emergency situations. She can't deal with them. She can't also she can't keep herself safe as well. So because of that, she has to have a carer 24/7 is what they've wrote. And yeah, we won't even get into that because the Labour government, we've finally applied for PIP and they do not get it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No.
So she's at home with you.
Yeah, she's at home. She's upstairs at the minute, bless her, writing her book. She is obsessed with the gods and goddesses. They're one of her obsessions. She is upstairs writing her book. So we've sort of, even though I've just spoke negative about it, there's a lot of positive. There's things like what she's come out to me, like we were talking one day about the gods and goddesses, and she turned around and said to me, Mom, what if there's actually only one? And I looked at her and went, What do you mean? And she went, Well, Japan have the story about the floods. I went, Yeah. The Bible has a story about the floods. Ancient Greece has a story about the floods. Hindus have a story about the floods. And I was looking at her going, Right, okay, where are we going with this? Because sometimes autistic, we have to push the story along. And she just went, Well, isn't it a bit funny they've all got the same story? What if there's actually one divine and they're all they've done is change the story for different places to believe in it?
No, that sounds brilliant. She doesn't sound like she's 10. She sounds brilliant.
Do you know what? This is the thing that's weird with her. With safety things, like as in roads, as I said, sexual things, cooking. So with stuff like that, she's really like, and this is why we ignore them. I know that sounds really bad, but she's really unsafe. But then you sit and you speak to her about stuff like this, and it's like her brain is so amazing. And I sit there and it's like I encourage her brain to work different. People are really shocked at me.
Has she got any qualifications?
Yes, she does. Yeah.
Oh, that's
How
good.
mummy smile.
She sounds like a clever girl.
She's very, very clever. She, well, I remember the reason so they were home educated. And the reason I home educated is due to the fact she was yelled at by a substitute teacher. Why are you doing year 11 maths when you can't even read the question when she was 12? And I was like, why are you putting down the fact she can't read the question when you could easily reword it?
No.
Why are you not praising her for doing year 11 maths?
Yeah, well, no wonder you can get angry sometimes.
Yeah, see, this is it. So in our home, we don't acknowledge our children's we acknowledge our children's failures, and we do sort of speak to them about maybe you need to try a little bit harder and stuff like that, but we sort of more promote what they're good at. We are really strict with that. So my other daughter's amazing at hair. She absolutely is brilliant at hair. So we encouraged her to be a hairdresser. She's now going to be qualified this year from being home educated. My other daughter she loves technology. So she loves editing videos and stuff like that. So at the minute, I'm in the process of teaching her how to edit my videos.
Nice.
And I think that's one thing in a way spirituality has taught me. Whereas schooling system sort of puts everyone in this box, it's one thing it's taught me is actually no, let's take what they're good at and make them excel in that. The rest of it can come along with it.
Well, I must tell you that two things here. One is that actually listening to you as well, I've been thinking about it for a while, but I'm thinking I will start doing a YouTube. I haven't done it yet at all, but so you've inspired me. So that's it. That's one thing. And another thing to say is that yesterday I have put up, I think, my first TikTok with literally no followers, nothing. No, I have 3 followers. You have to go follow me, Amy.
Yes, I will. You have to let me know. You have to
Like,
send me that
yeah, I
link.
will. It's like it's Dr. Piotrowska, Pio, but I will send it Piotrowska. But literally, I don't even know if I've done it properly because I don't know if it just sits. I've never done it before, but I post it and you like it. It's a video which says your mind is like a garden and you have to accept the weeds and everything because like bluebells, they grow and they grow around wildness, and that's what it is. So anyway, I've posted it, but the reason I've also thought about it just now is that, and I am a filmmaker, but I've always worked in the industry with editors and so on. So I've had to, for the first time, teach myself how to edit a little video, and actually it was really hard. So you're lucky that you have I have a daughter who can help you with that, because otherwise he's thinking about. So I'm now going to do simpler things for TikTok and YouTube, but the YouTube I haven't even started, so I will.
Oh, you need to send me the links. Absolutely need to send me the links, lovely.
I'm Empress Sparkler on YouTube if I was to look.
Yeah, I'm Empress Sparkle on YouTube everywhere. So basically, my family are very anti what I do. So I kept it hidden and I used to use a stage name. And then when I come out, I was like, I can't really change my name after the following I've got because that'll confuse everyone. So I just kept it. And Empress is because everyone always compares me to the Empress card on from the tarot deck. And Sparkle is because my eldest daughter's first pony was called Sparkles. Her show name was Sparkle. So,
No, you're Sparkle because it's Sparkle, my dear.
oh, thank you.
That's very clear to me. And I think, I have a sense we should carry on this conversation.
I do as well. I do as well.
To talk about. So we should sort of keep going and I love the fact that you have found a way to find your genius, even in, as you say, when you had PTSD, when you had all these difficulties, somebody helped you, but you then went on. And that's is very inspiring, actually.
Thank you. And the same for you, lovely. You and I literally sit here and I've listened to you and I'm like listening to what you've researched. The thing you said about the golden ball, oh, that is really stuck in my mind because I'm like, I never actually thought of acknowledging that before I blow it away.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, I think that it's so nice to talk to you as well, because it's nice when you meet somebody who inspires you and maybe you can inspire them a little bit. It's like a lovely team. And the energy, of course, is stronger together.
Exactly, exactly. And I do love your energy. I have to say
Oh,
that I do. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Honestly, I hope you've taken inspiration from this as well. And I will see you on the next one. Keep sparkling.